Receivers wide right, single to the left is Pickens. Shotgun snap, Pickens looking right all the way, throws wide open, Diontae Johnson, right side of the end zone for a Steeler touchdown. And Pittsburgh, with 4:02 to play in the fourth, takes a 19-16 lead.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Happy Friday. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I'm Connor Rogers alongside Matthew Berry, Jake Croucher. Love the Shawshank Redemption celebration from Diontae Johnson.
No question.
Out of the sewage.
I've seen Shawshank Redemption.
All right,
I've seen most movies, just not Talladega.
You really
Nights.
have. That's why I was just when Talladega Nights didn't pick up for you yesterday. I sat here in disbelief.
Yeah.
What about Days of Thunder? As long as we're talking about racing movies, you have seen Days of Thunder.
I have not seen Days of Thunder.
Yeah.
That's where Rubbin' Is Racing comes from. I mean,
my bag is from like 1985 to like 2018 when my first kid was born, and then it all went
no
out
more
the window.
movies.
Yeah, I don't
just
know
all
seeing
sports.
movies.
Then it's all like it's all Blippy and
exactly.
and Coco Melon and all that.
And Canto.
Right.
Yeah.
New
I've
York
seen
Liberty
Barbie.
mixed in.
Barbie, another great Will Farrell movie, by the way. Although, as you would say, not really a Will Farrell movie, to quote, but an excellent film nonetheless.
Yeah, fair enough. But no, to be a Will Ferrell movie, it's got to be like,
Step Brothers.
Step Brothers, exactly. Can I tell, this is so random, but I'll never get a chance to tell this story again very quickly. But we once, this is many years ago, back when I was a movie writer, and we had a meeting with these producers to pitch them an idea, and the idea was that they had the rights to Aquaman. Right? And so, to make a movie out of Aquaman, and there was always the old joke of like, oh, you can't do it underwater, the whole thing. Everything like that. And so this is before, this is how long ago this was. This is before the Marvel explosion and all these kind of realistic superhero movies, so to speak. You know what I mean? And so it was like, how do you do a superhero movie with Aquaman? And so the idea was, it was Will Farrell as Aquaman. No, and just imagine Will Farrell on the poster, it's Will Farrell, just in the tights, right? And it's just like, he talks to fish, right?
Like a total spoof,
right? Exactly.
Yes.
But that was how you would do the Aquaman movie. Was just he's the lamest superhero because his big superhero is he talks to fish, and it just So
it's like Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool, but without the swearing.
Correct,
basically.
without the swearing and without the actual because he still kicks ass. Deadpool does, but this would have been anyway. That was. And obviously, it never
can't believe it didn't get through.
It didn't get through, and then obviously they went. Eventually, it went with Jason Momoa, and whatever, but they went the big actual superhero way.
Vinny Chase is the real Aquaman. I just want that.
There you go. Fair enough.
Entourage.
There you go.
He's always the true Aquaman.
Doug, and I'm by the way, I'm friends with all those guys. By the way, Entourage. No, I've been in a league with. What?
It was an unprovoked.
I was just going to say, as long as we're talking Entourage for 1 second, we're going to get to the show. Don't worry about this. But as long as we're talking Entourage for just 1 second, that Jerry Ferreira, big fantasy player, big sports bettor, Turtle, of course. I've been on his podcast. He's been on mine. Anyway, really nice guy. Kevin Connolly, same thing. Played E. He's a big fantasy player. They're in the same league. He's been on my podcast, same. I've done some stuff. Kevin Connolly actually once played me in a sitcom. That's another story.
Yeah, we're gonna need another show.
And then Doug Ellen, who is the creator of Entourage, big fantasy player as well. And him and I have DM'd occasionally. So whatever. I'm just saying, this is a pro Entourage show.
Absolutely.
I just want you to know I'm good friends with Aaron Judge.
Yes.
Just want you to know that.
Yeah,
no relevance.
Just want to bring that up. That's nice. I've never met Aaron Judge. So there you go. You got one on us.
We both were 99.
Yeah. And with that, let's jump into the Rotoworld player news.
I'm not saying I'm good friends with any of those guys. I'm
Yes,
just
you
saying
are.
they're
acquaintances.
I know, but I know them somewhat, and I'm just saying they're friends of fantasy.
Okay.
For all your Rotoworld player news, go to NBCSports.com. And last night, Thursday night football, Steelers-Titans. The Steelers just keep finding a way somehow to win, even when it's ugly. Obviously, at the top, we showed Diontae Johnson gets a touchdown. It's been a long time since Diontae Johnson has scored. And we got to hear from him after the game on staying confident and staying composed while not getting in the end zone and what it meant to him on Thursday Night Football to do that.
With my teammates, Kenny, whoever it was that was coming up to me, I was just trying to, show love, because everybody put in a lot of work.
600-plus days is a long time.
Yeah.
How did you grow as a person, as a player, through some of that adversity?
It was tough, just really how I just carried myself each and every day, not trying to think about it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I got to figure out ways if I got to do something different or, you know what I'm saying, on certain routes or whatever it was. But, you know what I'm saying, just being myself and not pressing each and every week, just letting the ball find me, just keep getting open, and that's what happened.
The last time Diontae Johnson scored a touchdown in fantasy was January 3rd, 2022. This is from Yahoo Fantasy Sports.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers was an MVP candidate on the #1 NFC seed Packers. Ben Roethlisberger was the Steelers' quarterback. The Titans were the #1 seed in the AFC. The NFL's first ever Week 18 hadn't been played yet. Been a while for Diontae.
I was still at ESPN.
That's right.
I hadn't met either you guys.
No.
You hadn't lost an enmity to Todd Zeal yet.
I hadn't even left home yet. I was still in high school.
Jay didn't work for NBC Sports at that time either.
No.
Jay was
Australia.
I was not watching Talladega Nights.
Right, exactly. Jay was not watching Talladega Nights. Lots happened since then. I like the question in the interview. What have you learned in the 600 days?
It's not like he's been dead.
I mean, exactly. Or been out of the country.
He's been a productive wide receiver in the NFL.
Yes. Right.
In a bad situation.
Right, exactly. What lessons can you learn from this? I don't know. Maybe my quarterback, maybe we've had bad quarterback play the last couple of years.
Pressers are rough. And they're getting worse, I feel like. Just being honest here.
It's some of it is brutal. Come on.
And great for Diontae. That's as great of an answer as you can give to a
answered like a pro.
Yes.
Jay, it's been 600 days since you've had a good take. What have you learned? What have you learned in that over that process?
You know what I learned last night, Matthew, is so we got rid of one Ponzi scheme, which is the Alvin Kamara receptions Ponzi scheme, because he actually had a real game, so we're running back last week. There's a new Ponzi scheme, Connor. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know how they keep on doing this. It's ridiculous. They've been outgained in all 8 games this season in terms of yardage, and they're 5-3. They just keep on chugging along. And look, it wasn't pretty last night, but Diontae, 90 yards, 7 receptions, and a touchdown. I mean, I was laughed at last year when I said on Fantasy Football Pregame that I thought Diontae Johnson was a top 20 wide receiver in the NFL.
I had your back in that one.
You
Michael
did have my
Smith
back.
is the one who
he was the one laughing.
Right.
He looked like it last night.
What? He absolutely looked at it. I think the exciting thing here is so far this year, his average depth of target is over 11 yards. They're actually targeting him deep. It hasn't been some of the kind of the small stuff that we've seen in recently, where it's just been kind of this, dink and dunk stuff. And I think part of that was because candidly Ben Roethlisberger couldn't throw anymore, and then Kenny Pickett comes in towards the end of last year, and he's still inexperienced. But finally now Pickett more comfortable in the offense, more comfortable in the NFL, and maybe it's just Canada is exploring his play calling, but for whatever reason, they're finally taking some shots downfield and taking advantage of his speed. So to me, that's the exciting thing. It's now back-to-back games with at least 7 for 85 as well, at least 75 receiving yards in 3 straight. He's locked in as a top 20 wide receiver. We always talk about this: fantasy success, talent, and opportunity. We know he's got the talent. You and I both agree on that. And finally, he's getting the consistent opportunity from a quarterback that's good enough to at least get him the ball and makes a point of getting the ball to him.
And for all the good for Diontae Johnson, the flip side of that is since Diontae's return in Week 7, it's been tough sledding for George Pickens here, Matthew, where last night should have had the touchdown. He didn't get that second foot in.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is 2 of the last 3 weeks, he has not been very productive, and he is not the guy in this offense right now.
I guess so. Yes, he is not the guy. That's no question about it. He is definitely not the guy. But again, you look at there. Look at it there on your screen at the bottom. He was second on the team in targets in a game in which they didn't throw very much and was kind of an ugly game on a short week. They didn't throw very much. Second on the team in targets, and right to your point, Connor, he gets half a foot in. He basically got 1 foot in, 1.5 of a foot in, and the first part, you see it here on your screen. This is the thing. He gets 1 down, and then just right there, it's his left foot doesn't get all the way in. Just the toes of the left foot hit the white chalk, and so if that touchdown scores, I think people aren't as panicked about this as well. And so that was just sort of bad luck. You see him there catching one-handed. He is too talented for me to panic here. I started him last night. I'm obviously bummed about it. In a 16-team league, I had to start him. So I'll still start him next week against Green Bay, especially with 10 days to prepare.
Pickens is also running a crossing route on 3rd down where Kenny Pickett was wide open. It was a basic regulation pass. Kenny Pickett just missed it. Kenny Pickett, his numbers in the end were okay enough, and he got the ball to Diontae, but he did not play great.
It's a Kenny Pickett experience right now.
I think Will Levis' stats are worse. I thought Will Levis had a better game than Kenny Pickett.
No, I agree. Look, Kenny, I think the jury is still out on Kenny Pickett as a viable, NFL caliber starting quarterback, but he has been good enough to get the ball to Diontae Johnson, and I guess I'm not ready to panic yet on George Pickens. Disappointing game, but I don't know. you're telling me he's going to be second on the team in targets and he's going to get end zone looks? Like, more often than not, I feel like that's going to work out.
In the Steelers' split backfield between Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, a productive night here, Jay. Jaylen Warren makes the most of his carries.
You're Najee Harris,
11
Jay.
for 88, 25 yards and 3 catches. But Najee Harris gets the touchdown with his 16 carries and 69 yards. He also caught 2 passes. Both viable fantasy running backs on Thursday Night Football.
Jay, it's been 600 days since people were excited to have Najee Harris on their fantasy team. Has that changed? What have you learned in those 600 days?
Well, the problem is that even in his really good game, he kind of got outplayed by Jaylen Warren a little bit, which is a shame. But I'm actually playing Connor in fantasy this week.
Oh, you are?
In our league, which I didn't
I
realize.
had Pickens, so I'm in trouble
You had
already.
Pickens, and I was laughed at for building my team preseason around the Pittsburgh Steelers offense.
Rightfully
well,
so.
how do you like
Yes.
me now? Najee Harris and Diontae Johnson both had massive games. Pat Frymouth on IR, won't talk about him. But, no, it was good for Najee and also just good for the run game in general. Look, the Titans' run defense isn't what it was last year,
Correct.
but it's still a solid unit, and for them to do that is very encouraging.
I think the positive of Harris was 60% of the snaps, which is a season high. Since week 3, he's averaging at least 16 touches, so the volume has been there as well. And he's now had a double-digit target share. Like, they're starting to involve him in the passing game a little bit. You like that he converted the touchdown. Like, again, clearly, jokes aside, I'm not the biggest Najee Harris
I hate
fan.
him.
But, like, honestly, like, yes, I think if you have Najee Harris on your roster, you're encouraged by what you saw last night, despite the fact that to your point, Jay, Jaylen Warren played really well, as well. 14 touches, that's tied for a season high. He's now had double-digit fantasy points in 4 of the last 5. He is very much a viable flex. And what's exciting is it just wasn't all passing down work. Like, they used him between the tackles. They used him as a running back. It really felt like, that, again, maybe this is because Matt Canada was on the sideline and not in the booth. They made such a big deal about that. But for whatever reason, the fact is that unlike previous iterations where it was just like, oh, Harris is back there, he's running. Warren's back there, it's a passing play. They used Warren as a running back. They used Harris as a receiver, which is good because both guys have those skill sets. Both of those guys are versatile enough that you can sort of mix and match, and it keeps the defense off a little bit. One of the plays you just saw there, if you're listening and you didn't see it, was, Harris came very close to scoring another touchdown as well, out of bounds like at the 1. So I think you're encouraged if you have either of these guys. Harris is a borderline RB2, and Warren's still a very viable flex. Again, Pickens, too, also I think it's just a viable wide receiver 3.
This team as well, the Steelers, in the next 6 weeks, they have games home to Green Bay, Arizona, and New England, and then a game at Indianapolis. So this team somehow is going to be like 8-5 and right in the playoff mix, and they're going to be in game scripts where they'll be able to run the ball.
So Green Bay at Cleveland at Cincinnati. So
That's in between,
2 of the next 3 are tough, but again, like, I don't mind stashing these guys as you start looking ahead to the playoffs. Again,
Just then it's Arizona, New England, Indy, which is
that's exactly
golden.
Exactly. As you're heading towards the playoffs, yeah.
And the Steelers are getting good play out of their first-round pick in Broderick Jones on this offensive line. For whatever reason, they didn't go to the year playing him, but he has upgraded this unit, and that's going to help the running backs as well. Over on the Titans side of things, Will Levis, up and down night. He's 22 of 39, 262 yards. He throws the interception at the end of the game, and we got to hear from Mike Vrabel on his thoughts on Levis's performance against the Steelers right after this one.
There we go.
Fairly well, again, no delay of games, getting us in, and again, there were some things that will have to be better as far as just directionally, but I think that it was, again, we lost, so I'm not going to sit there and glorify that in his performance, but there was some good throws, there was some good protections, close on a couple runs. Third down was certainly a large factor in this game.
To see Levis's numbers through his first 2 NFL starts right here, guys.
Yeah, I like the headline, levitating. Nice. Yeah, well done. Whoever put that together. Appreciate that. I like a
Steven
good
credit.
pun. I'm a fan of a good pun.
In the air?
I mean, and by the way, Vrabel's right. I mean, the fact is that Will Levis was making his second start on the road on 3 days rest, and like the reason the Titans lost this game is they couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. The Steelers converted, for an offense that isn't all that good, the Steelers converted way too many 3rd downs in this game. And so that's not on Will Levis. I know he had the pick at the end. Okay, fine. But understand that Number one is that T.J. Watt and company were all over this kid. There were some good protections, as Vrabel says.
Many
but
not.
Many that were not.
When he said that, I was like,
and many good protections. And then also, there was also the fact that, Treylon Burks, awful injury. We're all rooting for the best and hoping for good news. Seems like positive signs from some of the news that's trickled out since then. But, now he's got to go out there. DeAndre Hopkins is triple covered, double and triple covered. And then he's got no one else out there to get separation, and he's trying to make something happen. They've got no timeouts. He's trying to force it. They have to score a touchdown. They're down by 4. They can't just kick a field goal. So I don't really – I know he had a couple of dropped passes, picks that should have happened that got dropped. But I am more pro Will Levis than not after that game. For fantasy purposes, I don't know that I'm picking up and starting him anytime soon. At Tampa Bay, at Jacksonville, home to Carolina, home to India, the next 4. So not a schedule that scares you, although the Jags playing really good defense. You don't love that. I don't know that I'm picking up and starting him anytime soon unless you're in a super deep 2-quarterback league. But I think for the skilled players that we care about, Henry and Spears, DeAndre Hopkins, maybe Chigakonkwo, we'll see if and when Treylon Burks is back. I think he's going to open up this offense.
Yep.
And here's the key thing that I think. 50% of his passes this year for Will Levis, again, small sample size, but as we got to deal with, 50% of his passes this season are either behind the line of scrimmage or 15 yards or more downfield. He's either chucking it deep with that cannon of an arm or he's dumping it off. And so that's a developmental thing to me.
For sure.
Right?
It's what he's comfortable with.
Right, exactly. But for me, and then I want you to talk about Levis here, Connor, but what for me, I think that's exciting because I think that gives value to Tajay Spears, who they involve. Again, I know he didn't do anything with it last night on the road to Pittsburgh, whatever. But they're going to be a more aggressive downfield, and he's also going to involve the running backs in the passing game more. And I think those two things are exciting for us that have the complementary Titans on our fantasy teams.
Kind of what to me was most encouraging about Levis last night is that coaches tell us what they think of their players with their play calling. And last night, Will Levis dropped back 44 times and they ran the ball 24 times. This is a very conservative offense typically, and that tells me that Vrabel has a certain degree of confidence in Will Levis that you wouldn't usually expect with a rookie quarterback.
Which makes you bang your head against the desk, Jay, that they did run on third down at the end of the game there because they do trust him early in games. And you see how we talked about this, Jay, before the show, just how tight of a spiral he throws really to all angles of the field. Very crisp. When you watch him at Kentucky, throwing outside the numbers, they didn't ask him to do it a lot, but when he did it, it looked as good as anyone in the country at times because he's got a big-time arm. Yeah. You see the release. He hangs in the pocket as well as any young quarterback I've seen in a long time. He will get the absolute you-know-what kicked out of him. And against that Steelers front, you're going to. The Titans' offensive line isn't any good. Yep. And it's going to be growing pains. He's literally going to get hit a lot. But at least they are taking the training wheels off in certain spots and saying, utilize what you're best at because that's why we brought you here, and the rest will follow.
In the first half, he looked like Dak Prescott. Like right now, it was incredible. And then it fell off a little bit, but I think very encouraging overall. And it'd be interesting to see just how Tannehill, who is still on the team and did not get traded, does he just come and take the job back at this point?
I don't know. They're 3-5. Yeah. They're 3-5 at this point. Don't you
play
sort
Levis.
of feel like you got to play Levis? He's the future. That's what they should do. And they should have honestly traded
The team looks
Tannehill.
better. The team looks better.
They should have traded Tannehill. I don't understand why they didn't trade Tannehill. I don't understand why the Commanders didn't trade Jacoby Brissett. And there's one other guy that I didn't understand why they didn't trade. But anyway, whatever. I don't get why and I'm glad they traded Josh Dobbs there. But it's a weird one. It's a weird one. And the Raiders. This is the other one. I don't know why the Raiders didn't trade Jimmy Garoppolo. That makes no sense to me. Fire McDaniels a week later. Yeah. You know what I mean? Before you bench Garoppolo.
Money?
But
it's the only thing I can think
of. You're telling me somebody out there wouldn't have taken Garoppolo? There are teams out there that
the problem is that he had the Detroit game the day before the trade deadline, maybe. So I'm not sure Minnesota wants $11 million on their books for next year.
Maybe not, but it's going to be $11 million on the Raiders' books, aren't you? Hey, we'll give us a late pick and take $6 million off of this, off of our hands or whatever. Find a way.
I agree.
There's a deal to be had for Garoppolo, and instead you're just going to eat the money. And again, it's just whatever. Bad franchises can be bad franchises, but. all that. But by the way, we had a good night betting. By the way,
did.
The under hit,
Yep.
which was my bet. The under hit, never in doubt. Never in doubt.
Yeah.
It was 36.5. It ends at 36.
Not a
of
second
course.
sweating.
Yeah, exactly. Never in doubt. But the under did hit, as did what was
Alex Highsmith,
Alex
who
Highsmith.
took him
Very
over
early.
0.25 sacks. He got 2 sacks, and he had a third one taken away by a penalty as well, which had nothing to do with the play, which is frustrating because that was the first one.
We have to ask DraftKings for alt sacks.
Yeah.
Going forward, I mean that's the
exactly.
real DGen betting, but
yeah.
alt sacks, plus 400 for 2 sacks from Highsmith.
Yeah.
Something to think about for our friends at DraftKings. In the Titans' backfield, we mentioned it a little bit. Tajay Spears stays involved, season high in snap rate. He did have 4 catches. The problem is, Barry, they only went for 4 yards, and of course this was a classic Derrick Henry game. Plenty of volume, and he gets the touchdown.
I'm still hanging on to him because I think he's still a viable flex in deeper leagues, and obviously he's a very important insurance running back for those who have Derrick Henry on your team. I think the fact that Levis is Levis is more willing to dump off to the running back than it seems Tannehill was, so I think that's exciting. I know he didn't do anything yesterday, but I do like the fact that he caught 4 balls, and he played 60% of the snaps. He ran 28 routes. Both of those were season highs. So the workload is coming. The production hasn't been there yet, and I believe the production will be coming, especially, again, as we talk about. They're 3-5, and who knows how much longer Derrick Henry has. They need Tajay Spears to get more reps. They need Will Levis to get more reps for the future of this franchise.
I think the key there as well is that Jacksonville won last week, and now Jacksonville's 6-2. Like, the division is getting away from the Titans in a hurry, so you'd think that they would go into the youth movement more quickly than they might normally.
All right, let's move over to the injuries we are tracking. Josh Allen leads this list because he returned to practice in full with that shoulder injury. Deshaun Watson, limited, but Mary Kay Cabot, while we're recording, has said that it looks like Watson will start, or everybody's believing Watson will start. So we'll see. Yeah.
Here we go again.
Go ahead, James.
What could go wrong?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know what to. I mean, we'll get to Deshaun Watson, but I have no idea what to expect out of him.
Tyler Lockett, also another limited with the hamstring. Then you have a lot of DNPs on this list. Josh Palmer, as we get closer to the Monday Night Football matchup with the Jets. He does have the extra day.
Right.
So that's something we'll keep an eye on. DK Metcalf with the hip. Imari DiMercado. Darren Waller's ruled out for Week 9. He didn't practice. That injury could linger beyond this week, but right now he is officially ruled out. Drake London still not practicing, which, as you said, Matthew, disappointing considering Taylor Heineke is now in. Dameon Pierce did not practice, and Matthew Stafford with the sprained thumb also did not practice.
It'd be really interesting because, I don't love Devin Singletary, but if Pierce were out, I don't think Mike Boone's going to get enough work there. Singletary should get enough work against Tampa Bay to be flex viable or borderline top 20-ish if Pierce is out. So let's see if Pierce, who hasn't practiced all week, let's see if he can go today as well. And also Stafford, obviously super interesting because if not him, it would be Brett Rippon. You're still probably starting Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, but you wouldn't love their chances nearly as much against the Packers this week. I know that, Jay, you say when you look at the lines, DraftKings believes Stafford isn't playing.
Yeah, the line is -3, but it's -115 on the -3. So the DraftKings expects that Matthew Stafford will not be out there. If Stafford was playing, that game is pick, or maybe even the Rams favored with how the Packers are playing. With Deshaun Watson, I think there are 3 possible outcomes. One, he's back, and he's the guy who, by the way, last time Deshaun Watson was healthy and playing, he had the best game of his career as a Cleveland Brown against the Tennessee Titans, destroyed them. I think the other possible outcome is that he looks like the guy he did against the Colts, where he's just completely useless and they had to take him out of the game, basically. Or you get somewhere in between. And I would say the somewhere in between is the most likely outcome. I don't think he's going to look like the guy he did against the Colts, because why on earth would they put him out there in a game where they're going up against Clayton Tune in Cleveland? So I think that he's probably going to be right. I think that's good news for Amari Cooper. It's good news for Kareem Hunt. And I think you can probably start your Cleveland players as normal.
Yeah, David Njoku as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, so we'll keep an eye on Watson.
Keep an eye on that.
And you guys will obviously have more on all of these on Fantasy Football pregame at 11 a.m.
Deshaun
on
Watson
Sunday.
is the hardest guy to talk about, I have to tell you.
Yeah. Well, it's becoming easy because he's a non-factor, in my opinion. Deshaun Watson, in my opinion, is reaching fantasy irrelevancy.
It is. It's hard to talk about him for so many reasons.
Well, yes.
And anyway, all I want to do is make jokes. I'm sorry.
And that can't be made.
None of them are good. None of them are good, and just whatever. I'm not a fan of the person. What can I tell you?
You can make some more jokes as we welcome in our good friend Denny Carter.
Denny Carter's somebody that I can
for the Regression Files. Denny, well dressed
Yes.
today on this
that
Friday
I can make
show.
fun of. Yeah, what's going on? Look at that. Denny's going
The sweaters
clubbing
are
later.
back.
Yeah.
The sweaters have come out. It's cold. It's really cold here in Maryland, so we are wearing the sweaters again.
Yeah, are you ready? Are you going clubbing after this? Like, what's going on? Like, what are you?
Looks like he's going to a club in 1987.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
Hey,
That's it.
I would do it. If you have a time machine, I'm there.
Right. What's the night at the Roxbury? Just
Yeah.
Denny, do this for me. Just do this. Just like there you go.
All right,
There you
yeah.
go. You could be in that sketch. That was pretty
I
good.
could do
It's
it.
pretty good. We might have to
Hey.
do a remake at some point.
I've trained my whole life for that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's good to have Denny on the show.
We welcome Denny on the show to talk about his article he writes every week, The Regression Files, players who are overproducing or underproducing based on their workload, playing time, and opportunity. So, Denny, let's start maybe in a more positive regression light on this Friday. Who do you got for us?
T. Higgins, who I know has been among the most frustrating fantasy picks of the season. Basically, he was injured when Joe Burrow finally got healthy. Burrow was hurt when Higgins was healthy. Now they're both healthy-ish. Last week, he caught 5 of 6 targets for 65 yards. He saw 33% of the air yards against San Francisco, which is a really good indicator of his involvement in this rejuvenated Cincinnati passing attack. He gets a pretty good matchup here against a kind of a middling Buffalo secondary, and in a game that it could shoot out easily. I'm sure you guys would agree with that. So I know T. Higgins has been frustrating, but you gotta stick with him. I think really good things are on their way this week.
You know what? I agree. Listen, honestly, I agree, Denny. We actually talked about this yesterday on the Love Hate show. T. Higgins made my love list this week, so you and I are in lockstep on this one as well. The Travis White injury, I think, helps as well. Look, he's had 4 full games where he's fully healthy this year. He's averaging over 8 targets a game in those games. And so you're telling me, like, a healthy T. Higgins is going to get over 8 targets from Joe Burrow in a game with a high over-under? Like, I'm in on that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Denny, how about somebody that had a big week last weekend but could come back down to reality going into this weekend?
Don't look at me.
I mean, this is a slam dunk.
Weekend? I did.
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
This one was easy. Rashid Shaheed is the most screaming regression candidate maybe of the whole season. Shaheed caught 3 passes last week, 150 plus yards, included a touchdown. One of those was from Taysom Hill, by the way, a 44-yarder that was ruled an interception and then overturned to be a reception. Very strange little thing there. But Rashid Shaheed is only running a route on half the snaps. He's a boom bust guy. He reminds me of like Deshaun Jackson, like early Deshaun Jackson, where you could get 25 points out of him. You could also get exactly 0, which I fear for Shaheed going forward. Now, if you're in a deep league, multiple flex spots, you could do a lot worse than Rashid Shaheed. I just wouldn't get too excited and start him over someone with a much safer PPR floor.
Shaheed's a strange one because so weeks 6 and 7, he played 62 and then 63 snaps. That's a ton of snaps.
Yeah.
And then last week, when he had 3 catches for 153 yards and a touchdown, he played 18 snaps. So I don't really understand what is going on with Shaheed's usage.
Yeah. Or the Saints in general.
That's
and
figuring
who
out the
knows? But
Saints.
right, he is big play dependent. He is very big play dependent for sure.
Yeah, and also Dennis Allen, the coach of the Saints, had a critique of Shaheed after the game last week. He said, "Hey, he ran a wrong route, so we're not sure about him going forward." I mean, it's a very strange thing. He's one of their best players, and they don't seem to be totally in on him. I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, bizarre situation for the New Orleans offense. Matthew, how about a positive regression pick for you from Denny's article?
Well, I read the entire article backwards and forwards, and definitely wasn't like on my toilet when I read it either. I was definitely took the proper time and care to read it. Yeah. Here's what I'm going to say. No, here's one call that I really like actually. Jokes aside, from your column here, Denny, which is DeAndre Swift. Right? I mean, again, somebody who's gotten 16 touches inside an opponent's 10-yard line this season. That's tied for 6th most against running backs. I like how the brotherly shove showed some wrinkles. The other day, the anti-DeAndre Swift article was, well, when they get in close, it's always going to Jalen Hurts. But then last week against my Commanders, they get into brotherly shove formation, and they hand it off to DeAndre Swift. And so I just, that fact, every single game where he's seen at least 60% of the team's rushes inside the 10, he's scored in every single game in a matchup against the Cowboys this week. I have him as my running back 11. I like the call on DeAndre Swift in terms of positive touchdown regression here.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that Philadelphia is the run-heaviest team inside the 10-yard line by far this season, and for good reason. You know, the tush-push, the running backs being able to run behind that elite offensive line. So I think that those opportunities for Swift will continue in a very high-value part of the field. I like him a lot against a Dallas defense that has been a little bit shaky against the run when game script is not insane, which obviously it mostly is in Dallas games.
Jay, being the grim reaper that you are, you get the negative regression pick. Where are you going with this one?
The Todd Zeal of the show, as it's known.
Stealing all the hope.
I'm going with my man Romeo Doubs, Denny, as a negative regression candidate. And Doubs has had a really strange season. Weeks 3 and 4, he had 25 targets across 2 games back-to-back. And then outside of that has largely been unsighted, kind of touchdown dependent. This Packers offense in general just seems like a mess. This Packers team in general seems like a mess. But you don't like Dobbs because you think his touchdown scoring is unsustainable with the amount of targets he's getting in the green zone.
Yeah, you know, he's getting away with it. And this is the thing. When I look for guys to write up in this article, I look for guys who are getting away with it. And he is doing just that. He's doing everything you want inside the 10-yard line. Like, he's converting most of his targets inside the 10-yard line into touchdowns, which just can't last. You would think with the play of Jordan Love that it won't last. It can't last. Also, Christian Watson has kind of emerged as the wide receiver 1 in some respects. In others, it's still Doubs. I don't think that I'm trying to put him into my lineup everywhere if I have better options, because he's touchdown dependent, like you said, Jay, and we don't like that.
Yeah, listen, I know how you write about guys getting away with it. I look forward to when I'm in your column. Hey, question for you here, Denny, real quickly. The NASCAR Championship at Phoenix is this Sunday at 3 p.m. right here on NBC and Peacock. It's a big company priority. So my most important question to you is, have you seen Talladega Nights?
I thought you were going to ask me who do I like to win, and I would have had nothing to say. But yeah, of course I have. I saw that in the movie theater back in the day.
Yeah, of course you did. Will you do me a favor? Will you go vroom vroom, like what or again, we're trying to promote the race for NBC. God.
Vroom vroom.
Yeah, there you go. That's all I need. Hey, last thing for you before we let you go. Thanks. You're a good sport here. NBC's gonna be very thrilled with that. I'm going to cut that as a promo for the
actual race.
The actual race. Boy. Denny saying vroom vroom. There's been, Denny, everyone knows, not just here at Rotoworld and NBC, but around the industry, around the fantasy football industry, you are Mr. Kicker. You are you love kickers. There was an injury in New York. Graham Gano. Is that like, I'm just curious.
Done for the year.
Yeah, done for the year.
What's the fallout here, Denny?
Yeah, what's the fallout here?
Okay, here's what's happening, guys, okay? We have Cade York, who was great at LSU, drafted by the Browns. They had to let him go because he was struggling mightily in the preseason. We have Cade York facing longtime veteran Randy Bullock.
Yeah.
In a Friday showdown at Giants practice, and whoever wins that tryout, I'm not joking here, is going to kick for the Giants this Sunday and going forward. I don't know who I want to win, honestly, but it's the only thing I can think about.
Sure. I'll tell you who wins. America. America's won. America's won already. We've got a Friday kicker showdown. Denny, you're a good sport as always. Say hi to everyone at the club in 1987.
You can catch Denny for his live fantasy football Q&A right after happy hour at 1 p.m. Eastern time on the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. Denny,
everyone go ask him kicker questions.
Please, just flood
the
chat with kicker questions.
Kicker questions, and how much do you hate being on the show with Barry? You can be honest, Denny. You can be honest.
Or just say vroom vroom.
Or just say vroom vroom.
Yeah, that'll get it going. We're taking our first break. When we're back, it's what's on tap at the Bud Light Bar. The biggest point totals the entire weekend.
I thought he'd be more like vroom vroom. I thought he'd lean into it more. To tell you right now, let me teach you a few things that I know about racing. Yeah. I'm actually a NASCAR expert.
Okay. I disagree, but okay.
All right, no. Listen, hear me out. A couple things. Rubbing is racing. Okay, there you go. If you ain't first, you last.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Right. And when I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence. There you go.
Race car.
America's all about speed.
Yes.
Hot, nasty, badass speed.
What does that even mean?
The NASCAR Championship at Phoenix, that's what it means. One final showdown out west. 4 drivers enter. 1 leaves, a NASCAR champion. This Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern time on NBC and Peacock.
Vroom, 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 vroom.
Terrible.
That's great.
It was great. In all seriousness, this happened during the break. But I'm just asking you, tell me, America, this wouldn't have been funny. Just imagine again, Will Farrell on the poster like this, and he's got the ugly yellow, orange top and the green tights, and it's just like this. He talks to fish. It's just like Will Farrell trying to look badass.
Yeah, revive it.
I'm just saying, that would have been funny. I'm just saying. It would have been funny.
And then when it's a hit, you could be like, well, I pitched this, 15 years ago?
Exactly.
Something like that.
Years ago.
Now you got it true.
It would have been funny. I mean, although, in fairness, DC made $1 zillion with the first Aquaman. So whatever.
They ended up winning.
But I'm just telling you, my way would have been funnier.
As you can see, we're back at the bar. It's Bud Light. What's on Tap? What's on Tap is brought to you by Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the NFL. And here's the matchups with the highest point totals. Nothing is as easy to enjoy as a Sunday full of football and a fridge full of beer, but these are the games we're locking in on, starting with the Dolphins at Chiefs. The Chiefs are favored by 2 points in this game. This line is now at 50.5 points. And the first question I have here for you, Matthew, is can Raheem Mostert rebound after back-to-back quiet games? He's been a little banged up as well, but he will play in this game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think it matters, and I'll tell you why I don't think it matters. You're starting him. His name is Raheem Mostert. You're legally required to start him. Them's the rules. I didn't make them up, but you have to. The question is do you think the Dolphins move the ball against the Chiefs? And I do. So in essence, I'm starting him. I have Raheem Mostert at running back 8. I'm all in, right? I mean, again, they've allowed at least 75 rushing yards to a running back in back-to-back games. The Chiefs have, right? I mean, and so if you're telling me a running back is going to get 75 yards against them, it's most likely going to be Raheem Mostert, right? They also allow 4.5 yards per carry to running backs this season. That's 7th highest as well. And so if they get in scoring position, Mostert, it seems to be their guy. I think that they will focus, the Chiefs will focus for a variety of reasons on slowing down Tyreek Hill. They're going to, because no team is in the NFL knows better than the Chiefs what Tyreek Hill can bring to an offense. And so that will be the focal point, in my belief, of what to do. And so I think they'll play deep, they'll play too high, they're going to try to bump up. Anyway, I think running lanes will be open for Raheem Mostert and the Miami Dolphins. So yeah, I'm as a top 10 play. I know it's been a quiet couple of weeks, but I'm in on Raheem must start.
I agree. In addition to it being a focal point, the Chiefs are just better at defending the passing game as well. They're more vulnerable to the run, so that'll play into Mostert's hands as well. I also like that the Dolphins, they've flown over to Germany well before the Chiefs. I don't understand how there isn't just a uniform approach to that. Surely someone just figures out what's the best way to do about this, scientifically, and everyone just do that. But everyone does a different thing. But going over earlier seems to have worked more in the past. So I like that for Raheem Mostert. Look, it's going to be a high-scoring game, and even if you're low on Raheem Mostert, he's a still no-brainer start.
We kind of hinted at this, Jay. I wanted to ask you. We've seen the Dolphins play. We've seen them blow out some poor teams. They have an incredible offense. There's no denying that. But we've also seen them stumble a little bit where they've set their bar against the better teams, and the Chiefs absolutely fit that bill. Do you think this is a game where Miami can actually beat a really good opponent and show, no, we are for real. We're not just beating up on, the minnows of the sea here in the NFL.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And look, we all love Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel won the press conference in Germany with his comment about being bigger in person. But sneaky thing about Mike McDaniel is he's lost every single big game he's ever played with the that he's ever coached for the Dolphins. They haven't stood up. They got blown out by Buffalo. They got blown out by the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. So this is a massive test for them. I think the Chiefs are just a slightly better team. But what I'm most interested in with this game is how much does Jalen Ramsey just completely change the complexion of this Miami defense? Because that's been their issue. That's how they got destroyed by Buffalo, because they couldn't do anything with Stephon Diggs. Now they have Jalen Ramsey, who looked like himself last week. And so that's the real key, I think. Because if he's back to being himself, then all of a sudden that defense is a strength.
The Eagles were the better team on Sunday night, but I will say this. Tyreek Hill, I know this drove me crazy because this killed my parlay that I had that night. But honestly, Tyreek Hill had a ball wide open, and he runs a little bit too fast in his knee, and he bounces it up. And if he comes down with that ball, where 99 out of 100 times he's coming down with that ball, he has a clear path to the end zone, and he gets that touch. You know what I mean? And so I feel like Dolphins definitely did not get any help from the referees there as well. Again, Eagles were the better team, but I think in a better officiated game and Tyreek Hill making a normal Tyreek Hill play, I think the narrative of them, they can't play with the big boys, changes, because I think that would have been a much closer competitive game.
Yep. No, I agree. I think the Dolphins are very live in that. I think this is a coin flip game.
Our next one.
I'll say I like the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs, but it's interesting because the public, it opened I think at -3, right? It's now down to -2. So the public is coming in on the Dolphins, it sounds like.
Yep. There has been some momentum for the Dolphins. And I think some of that is actually the Chiefs traveling over later. People really don't like that in the market.
Yeah.
Our next one here, Sunday Night Football, the Bills at the Bengals. The Bengals are favored by 2 points in this one. The point total is now at 50.5 here. And Matthew, we got to see a career-high 9 receptions for Gabe Davis last week. Do you think this is a sign of things to come or kind of a flash in the pan?
I hope so, because I think this is the thing that was most exciting to me wasn't just obviously the targets, but the fact of the matter is like his average depth of target was 6.7 yards. Prior to that game, it had been over 15. Again, nothing but just deep downfield stuff, and that was the case with him last year. Just all this deep downfield stuff that's so boom or bust. Like, you know, if he hits him in stride and he gets a step, then okay, but otherwise, no, it falls short. But using him in a bunch of different routes, using him close to the line of scrimmage, honestly, more like a real wide receiver that has an expanded route tree versus just this guy who's, you know, go fast and let me see if I can hit you in stride. And so if they do that, and we talked about this, the fact that they are playing so much more 11 personnel, they've done it in over 70% of their snaps each of the last 3 games. And so I'm sort of buying this with Gabe Davis as well. We know he's going to be looked for when they get in close. He's top 5 in the NFL in end zone targets this season. He's got 3 in the last 2 games as well. He's been fairly touchdown dependent this year. I mean, when he doesn't score a touchdown, he averages under 4 fantasy points per game. But I'm at wide receiver 28, so I am as a wide receiver 3 this week. And I think that if you're sort of deciding in that range, give me the upside of Gabe Davis. Again, I want to see it again before I move him higher up. But I think if they use him, if they're not just chucking it to him deep and they're using this kind of expanded route tree that we saw last week against Tampa Bay, I think good things can happen for a talented player.
Yeah, and I think Dawson Knox going on IR has kind of lucked the Bills into this 11 personnel thing where now it's like an NBA team that just has more shooters on the floor. It's just a more space floor. The offense just looks more pristine. And I think they're going to beat the Bengals on Sunday night. I know they're 2-point dogs, but I don't really agree with the line. The Bills were 6-point favorites against the Bengals in the playoffs. Now that game was at home. You're flipping it over now. They're 2-point dogs away to the Bengals when they're on extended rest as well. Allen was full practice yesterday. He's good to go. And I know everyone thinks like Joe Burrow is all the way back and he's 100%. I agree, but I think he was that way 3 weeks ago against the Cardinals when he completely lit them up and he was running for first downs and his metrics, underlying stuff around, how he was evading pressure, he seemed healthy. And in between that, they weren't very good against the Seahawks. So I think the idea that Burrow is healthy is correct. I just think he's already been healthy, and the offense wasn't all world against the Seahawks. So I think the Bills are the better team, and I think they'll win on Sunday.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting. Again, and I think you bring up a good point. The last time we saw Buffalo was the Thursday night game against Tampa Bay 10 days ago.
Yeah,
so they've had the mini bye, and this is obviously a game they've had circled on their calendar for quite some time, Connor.
Our final one here, Cowboys at Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 3 points against Dallas. The point total in this one is 47. And Jay, something we routinely talk about with the Cowboys is Tony Pollard, or the lack thereof, with this Dallas run game. Is Tony Pollard at this point buy, sell, or just really hold out that he's going to get it going behind this Dallas offensive line?
I think you have to hold out. I mean, Pollard's year has been very disappointing. He's not having the explosive plays that he did last year, but he's still productive. He's still getting a ton of work for Dallas. And the thing is that we forget with Tony Pollard, he broke his leg in January, literally broke his leg. So I think he's having maybe some difficulty coming back off that. But it's not a great matchup against the Eagles and their run defense. I think you beat them through the air. But the good thing is that Pollard can give you work through the air as well. So look, Tony Pollard, you're starting him every week. And if you're selling him now, it's at a low point. I think there's much more scope for him to go up in value than down.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys offense, just in general, really struggled to start up. And then finally, the last couple of weeks, the passing game has gotten going, right? We haven't seen it from the run game yet, but hopefully the success of Dak Prescott, he looks better. CeeDee Lamb, my guy, 8. Brandon Cooks is starting to come alive. They've found something in Jake Ferguson.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that all of that combined now opens up stuff for Tony Pollard. I think you're concerned, just to give you a stat, Jay, based on what you said about the lack of explosive plays. He's had his yards per carry this year, 3.9. Only 6% of his rushes this year have gone 10 or more yards. That is down 16% from last season. Now, is that because he bulked up in the offseason knowing that he was going to have a bigger role? Is he somewhat slower? Because is it because McCarthy is just running him up the middle and not a super creative play caller and not getting him into space the way he was last year when he was a complement to Ezekiel Elliott? Is it just, again, the offense has been bad, and they're like, let's fix Dax in the passing game first, and now let's worry about the run game, or we just haven't needed it. The defense has been so good at times that they haven't, they've had kind of this luxury, if you will. To your point, Jay, though, he's Tony Pollard. You're starting him. If he's on your team, he was your first-round pick this year. I'm at running back 7 this week. I actually like him this week. I think he rebounds. This year, when he's gotten at least 15 touches, he's averaging 18.6 fantasy points per game. Against the Eagles, I think he gets that kind of workload.
Yeah. What do you think is wrong with Pollard? Do you think, because when I watch the games, it's just there's no space for him to move.
They're predictable. They're a predictable team with Mike McCarthy calling the plays, like you said, where they are very predictable of when they run, how they run. And here's the thing for Dallas that you could say. In the past years, their line has been so good that didn't even always matter, especially with a different running style in Ezekiel Elliott. But now it does matter, and it's great for Dallas that they could throw. They could drop back with Dak. They have different options besides CD. I think Ferguson's been great this year. But, Jay, I just think when it comes down to it, the getting hit at the line of scrimmage for a running back that's not really a bruising running back and the lack of creativity, the way they run, has affected Pollard in the biggest way.
So 2 quick things here. Number one is just to your point about asking, should you trade, should you sell him? Absolutely not. In fact, I'd actually try to buy low on him right now, because look at this. After Philadelphia, and that we know is not a great matchup here. Giants, Panthers, Washington. So 3 really good matchups for Tony Pollard. So even if he doesn't do anything this week, actually, I wouldn't mind trying to acquire him because he should have good news. Just some updates that have just sort of come in here. By the way, Deshaun Watson officially will start on Sunday as well. 11 minutes ago, this came in via John Glennon, who writes, according to Vrabel, he tweeted this out. This is all from the Fantasy Life app. Not ready to name Levis the starter. We'll have a depth chart conversation over the weekend, see where things stand on Tuesday. He's going to be the starter, but he's just not doing that. Frank Reich says Chuba Hubbard will continue to start at running back, but it will be a committee approach. Hubbard's the only running back you want there. And then finally, Jonathan Gannon says they haven't decided who will start for the Cardinals at quarterback against the Browns on Sunday. He said they'll likely decide on the plane today or tomorrow whether it's Kyler Murray or Clayton Tune, and they've had a good week of practice.
That line has been moving towards Arizona. So the market thinks that Kyler's
starting.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's a big change.
That is a big change. Again, Kyler Murray is not 100% rostered. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Now, he's rostered in all the leagues I play in because I play with people who know what they're doing. But you out there might not be playing in a league with everyone that knows what they're doing. So go get Kyler Murray if he's still available in your league.
It's the nicest thing you ever said about Jay and I. I play fantasy with people that know what they're doing.
Yeah, you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah,
Thank you,
for the most part. I mean, you've got those Najee Harris, Michael Thomas blind spots.
Yeah.
But no, you guys absolutely know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
That'll do it for what's on.
I'm in first place in that league. I'm just saying.
You are.
Kills me.
It does kill them.
Yeah. I'm 5-3, and I'm the most fraudulent 5-3 team there's ever been.
That'll do it for what's on tap.
You and the Steelers.
You and the Steelers. Presented by Bud Light. Easy to Sunday, easy to enjoy. We're going to break. When we're back, it's last call. Jay and I got our pickup lines of the week for Matthew.
Vroom, vroom.
DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code BERRY when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Let's look at some of our pickup lines, but before we do, and here's the matchups with the highest spreads in the week. Matthew, I see you have on your Maryland Terrapins hat. I heard there's a high-profile fantasy happy hour matchup this weekend.
Well, yeah, I mean, because everyone knows I love my Terps. Go Terps. I've been a lifelong diehard fan for a couple of months. Huh?
No, I'm kidding. I said name 4 players.
Exactly. Well, it's Maryland.
To his brother.
I got 2 brothers. Yeah, exactly. The fact we don't have time for all that. It's a short segment. We got to get to our DraftKings bets. But I just want to point out that I believe my Terps play Penn State this weekend.
Yes.
That's right, Penn State Blake. And I have a bet. And I will say this. I got to give credit to Penn State Blake. And Penn State Blake is giving me the points.
Yeah.
I believe they're 8.5-point dogs
Correct.
to the Nittany Lions. And so we have a bet, me and Penn State Blake. Unlike, I don't want to name names, Lawrence Jackson, who wouldn't give me the points on the Falcons Commanders bet.
Lawrence Moneyline Jackson.
Yeah, Lawrence Moneyline Jackson. Like, the worst.
Good.
Yeah, honor the spread. And so anyway, Penn State Blake. What are we betting, Penn State Blake? Do we have a shot at him? Do we have a camera on him? No. We don't. We don't have a camera on him. All right, good. That's no worries. We'll figure it out. So anyway, but yeah, Penn State. I think dinner. I think we're going to do dinner here.
At the cafeteria.
Do you guys have a sandwich? Yeah. Do you guys have a favorite? Who are you taking?
I think Maryland will cover. I think Maryland will cover.
It is a lot of points, but I'll still roll with Penn State.
Okay.
Wow. I don't think Maryland's very good.
There you go. Look, there's Penn State.
That's fair. That is fair.
There he is. There's Penn State Blake.
Yeah,
there you go.
He's repping.
Yeah. We are gonna lose.
All right, let's jump into our pickup lines for the weekend. Jay, what do you got for Matthew?
Okay.
Who's taking me home tonight? Come on.
Yeah.
I'll wear the hat.
Hopefully me.
And a smile and nothing else.
Yeah. Outstanding. So my bet, Matthew.
Yes, sir.
Rashid Shaheed. I know Denny Carter talked down in terms of negative regression, and I agree he's not going to go 153 yards and a touchdown again, probably, but I still think he's going to go over 30.5 receiving yards. That's the line at DraftKings. It's too low. He is their deep threat. He's going up against the Bears secondary, which is the second worst pass defense in the entire league. I just think after the success that he showed last week and the fact that he played 125 snaps the previous 2 weeks combined, he's going to be on the field. He just needs to connect with one. You just need one to go over 30.5 receiving yards for Rashid Shaheed.
Listen, there's no bigger Rashid Shaheed fan than me, so I love that.
True.
And hopefully Dennis Allen relaxes a little bit after that quote.
Come on, Dennis.
Ironically, Jay and I don't discuss these, of course, before the show. We both went with Saints props. I'm going Alvin. Very weird. Very strange. Yeah. Alvin Kamara over 32.5 receiving yards. They're almost the same exact prop as well.
Weird.
Matthew, Kamara's last 5 games, 51, 91, 36, 17, and 33. He's done this in 4 of the last 5. The receptions scared me a little bit. I don't know if he goes over 4.5, but I think he's going to make the most of his receptions. I like the over on a very low receiving yards total for the, I don't know if it's a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme, but whatever scheme Kamara's running with the Saints offense.
I like both these bets, by the way. Just fantasy life alert, Drake London will not play on Sunday, so that's official. Drake London's going to be out. I like both these props. Both of them I think will hit, but give me Alvin Kamara. I'm going home with Connor. Again, we saw what Eckler did to the Bears last week. The Bears are brutal against pass-catching running backs. Eckler had a huge game last week. I think Kamara gets there, so give me Alvin Kamara. That's closing time. Means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Penn State Blake, Jay, and Connor, and Denny Carter, I'm Matthew Berry. Vroom, vroom. Go watch a race on Sunday. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.